Welcome to Roofing Road Trips, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey across the world of roofing. From fascinating interviews with roofing experts to on-the-road adventures, we'll uncover the stories, innovations, and challenges that shape the rooftops over our heads. So fasten your seatbelts and join us as we embark on this exciting roofing road trip.
Hello and welcome to another Roofing Road Trips from Roofers Coffee Shop. My name is Heidi Ellsworth and I am so excited today. I get the privilege of being here with a dear friend and a kind of icon in the roofing industry, I have to say, and that is Ron Harriman with Benchmark. Ron, I've watched your work over the years. I am so honored to have you here today.
Well, I'm glad to be here, but I don't know what icon you're talking about. You got the wrong podcast. You must be in the wrong meeting.
No, I don't think so. Especially once we start talking, because we're today, and I am so excited about this topic because it's something I've been somewhat passionate about my whole career. Is really how do we bridge that gap between roofing contractors and roofing consultants? There's so much we can do together, but yet sometimes it tends to get a little bit volatile. Sometimes out there, contentious is probably a better word. So let's start first with your introduction. So if you could introduce yourself and tell them about Benchmark and tell everybody, just let them get to know you. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with kind of introducing Benchmark, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my story. But Benchmark was incorporated as a roof consulting firm in 1983. So we're just coming up on our 41st anniversary. So coincidentally, RCI, the predecessor of IBEC, was also incorporated in 1983. That wasn't necessarily the beginnings of the roofing industry, but so Benchmark was kind of early in that kind of development of an industry, basically. And so Benchmark, we're a roof and pavement consulting firm. We've been doing this, roofing things since, for 41 years. And in some respects, a lot of what we do today is very similar to what we did in 1983. We help clients with assessment of their existing roofs, and many of our clients have multiple facilities. So it's becoming a bit more of a information management consulting than it used to be. It used to be just a pure roof consulting. Now we're seeing technology come into play. So that's a really exciting development in the industry, I believe. But it's still kind of what the expertise we provide is to help clients kind of understand where they're at with their roof. What should they be doing about it? What might it cost? And weigh alternatives, kind of make business decisions.
Yeah.
We also assist them with projects, putting together concepts, plans and specifications, qualifying roofing contractors to bid on projects, or in some cases, just negotiating contracts with roofing contractors. Typically for large roof replacements is kind of our kind of sweet spot. We certainly do get involved with some new construction, but most of our work is on existing buildings. And so I think that's, a more complex environment, and it's probably a little bit more suited to our expertise. And then we provide construction phase services. Well, we'll put a consultant on a project to help, basically help get the thing done successfully, on time, on budget, safely, all of those kinds of things, following the specs.
Right.
So those are our services, and we've been very, very fortunate over the years to develop a clientele that, so a great number of our clients are repeat business type clients. So we're relationship driven. So really, I won't give you all of our core values and background along those lines. But if you just picture two things that we emphasize, and that's relationships and then proven results.
Yeah.
And so relationships starts with inside our company. And, we like to be a tight-knit team. And then we like to take that out into the market with our roofing contractors, with roofing manufacturers in the roofing industry. It's just kind of hard to turn that on or off based on your audience. So I think we really want to get engaged with relationship opportunities, and then also, we're big on proven results. If you've been doing this as long as we have, and when I think back to the 1980s, I have to admit we didn't have it all figured out. Okay.
Well, it's when it all started. I mean, really, on the consultant side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of the Wild West, and we made mistakes. We've got scars. I had to wear long sleeve shirts today just to make sure and cover that up. But we made some mistakes, and I think it's a part of our wisdom is having learned the hard way.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to carry that with you. It'd be silly not to carry that with you.
It's interesting, Ron, because I started in the roofing industry in the early 90s, and that was really when consultants, like you said, started in the 80s, but then we were really seeing a lot of consultants, and we were working with them. And I have to say, it was a lot different than I see today. And especially, I think the roofing industry overall, the professionalism has grown substantially over the last decades. But I've seen that especially with the roof consultants, just this really growth of professionalism and taking on the whole building envelope and just how they interact with the industry overall. I find it really interesting. And I think when I look back at RCI, Roof Consultants Institute, I actually wrote for the magazine a couple times, and that was, I'm not a technical writer, so that was a little challenging for me. But, and then you look at today, the organization IBEC, I mean, just wow, is grown so much, and there's so much out there. But I would love, as you kind of shared that history of the roofing consultants, but where do you see, let's talk about, actually kind of talk in the history too, but what has that relationship between the consultant and the contractor, how has that grown? Because it was pretty contentious back in the day.
Yeah. And I'll mix in a little bit of my story into that, because I started in 1984 in the roofing industry for a roofing contractor. And so I started on the roof as a crewman. And you've heard me talk about that before. I'm just very grateful for having that opportunity. And after being on the roof for a year, I then went into the office as a draftsman estimator and project manager. So some of my first experience, engaging with a roofing consultant was as an estimator and project manager. So I was bidding projects. And then once we got awarded a project, then I was doing submittals. It's like, I hated doing submittals.
Yes, I know.
So it's like, I have so much empathy to both sides of the equation here, because it's like, oh, really? Because in my normal course of doing a project, that was, I perceived it as just being an extra step, and I wasn't necessarily connecting to the value of it. So when you think of the industry and the potential or the past of some contentious relationships, it was certainly there, and I was part of it. I was on the contracting side of the fence, and after I became, I spent some time as an estimator. I then moved into sales, and I really was trying like crazy to sell direct to my clients. And I was not seeking opportunities that involved a consultant. In fact, I probably competed with that idea. So I that's my background, and I think I chose to, in preparation for today, I called Bill Good. It's like, okay, Bill, remind me of a few things, because I want to make sure that I've got some of this down pat, but even some of it even predates Bill, because the roof consulting industry was probably already in place in the 70s and perhaps even before that. But some of the original idea of developing a professional association for roofing was actually at the request of the NRCA.
Ah,
And
that
then
makes sense, actually.
shortly thereafter, it kind of broke down. I mean, it just didn't take off the way that, people had originally envisioned. So, it'd be impossible for me to dissect or, do an autopsy on that, but it didn't work.
Wow.
That broke down. And so, I think there's been various iterations at this. And in fact, Bill recalls where it was the theme of an NRCA convention, before they called it the IRE.
Right.
And it's like, so we've been at this topic for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that I've heard it all 30 years I've been here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I certainly can't, I can't avoid the topic. I can't, but hopefully I bring enough kind of respect for all parties that I can understand it. But I still think it's a little bit of a situation where we can rise above. We can kind of figure out what are the issues that we're getting tripped up on, because at the end of the day, they may not be that important, or they could be impeding the growth, the development, the health of both entities and all entities. So I think if we maybe approach it slightly differently than we ever have, and this is true. I actually don't just have a respect for both the roof consultant industry and the roofing contractor industry. I love them both.
Yeah.
And so I want both to thrive, because it also, maybe it's a Bill Good kind of metaphor here, but I remember Bill speaking, I don't know how many years ago it was. It had to be more than 20 years ago. And he was talking about the growth of the Hispanic workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, the roofing industry was still resisting that idea. And Bill made a statement that those that do this well will have a competitive advantage. And I thought he had some great suggestions about that. And that was so insightful, long before it really, developed. And so I'm in the same position today when it comes to us working together and collaborating as an industry. I believe, let's just insert that same philosophy. Those that do it well will have a competitive advantage.
Yes. Well, I want to go back too, because you said something that I just totally resonates. And that is talking about that actually the NRCA was encouraging the roof consultants to start their own professional organization and get professional certifications going. And that resonates. That makes so much sense to me, because of course we want to have both national roofing contractors and the roof consultants working together and really having that respect across the board. And so thinking about that and thinking about the certifications that have come out now, RRO, all of the things that RCI and then IBEC have done, I'm now watching contractors. And I know it's been going on for many years, but I was just talking to a young contractor who I saw at the IBEC show, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm getting all my certifications as a consultant because I want to understand it. I want to be able to support. And I think that switch has happened where what the roof consultant community did to really bring education and certification to it has actually really made a difference for the roofing contractors. Talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think there's a lot there, Heidi. One, again, specifically, when I say that the NRCA actually tried to stir this up, they brought this group of roofing consultants together in Chicago, and developing a professional certification was part of that request.
Yeah.
So the roofing industry was at that point perceiving we have to have a professional avenue. And there was no labor shortage, like we have today, although it was still being talked about as a labor shortage. But creating professional, kind of avenues for career development, whether in the form of certifications or degrees or passing of exams, kind of the PE equivalent. The RRC is kind of the equivalent of a professional engineer. So I'm a big believer in it. But here's the thing that I would maybe add a little bit of Ronism to it. It's like I'm not really for it just for the sake of a bunch of letters behind a signature.
Nice. Yeah.
Part of what I'm after and what I love is that someone takes an exam, they study that material, they learn it in a way such that it's not just to pass the test. It is actually, because one of my absolute kind of fondest memories, when I think back 40 years ago when I was on the roofing crew, and some of the guys that I was on the roof with are now leading companies. So, one of them's an operations director for a major roof manufacturer. One's a tech director for a roofing man. It's like, one's just down the road from me here. Yeah. He runs an entire sheet metal shop and it's like, so it's like having places to grow. But what it takes? It's take people that got that certification. They approach roofing like it's a profession, and they wanted to learn as everything they could get their hands on, but not just to prove it to somebody else. They wanted to learn it in such a way that they could teach it. Yeah. And then, some of these same people became inventors of new stuff. It's like, well, I mean, it's just an incredibly healthy track. And if we can stir up more people to, kind of fall in love with learning as well as fall in love with roofing, then I think we got something. And then it's kind of a flywheel. It perpetuates itself as opposed to needing to go out and replace a workforce, on a very short cycle. No, we've got a developing workforce. And so my involvement with the NRCA, I kind of backed into it, in a non-traditional sense. And you've heard my confession on this before, but we're guilty. We were members of NRCA for many years. We just wrote the check, sent it to Chicago. We weren't involved. Right. And it was through the Roofing Alliance that kind of pulled me in, and that emphasis on professionalism and developing, a crop of roofing, people that have an interest in roofing, and even taking classes in roofing and getting certified in roofing, and, the pro certification program for crew people. It's not just for college graduates, it's for people coming from the trade.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm jacked about that.
I am too. And when I really look at that, I mean, I was able this year to spend some time with Amy Peavy, who was the past president, the first woman president of IBEC. And she talked about taking the classes and the education and getting her certifications and just how much it meant to her. I mean, we're actually on a panel talking about the importance of professional certifications. And so I see that, and I see now contractors doing the same thing. And then obviously NRCA with their pro certification, which you've also been a huge supporter of to get more training out there. So as you're kind of looking at this, I mean, it seems to be happening, Ron. I just being at this most recent show, I saw a lot of contractors there, a lot of roofing contractors who are getting involved. But how can we encourage the collaboration, the continued improved collaboration between roofing consultants and roofing contractors? And before you answer, I have one thing to say. I did at the show still have a couple of consultants and contractors who came by the booth who were both kind of like grumbling about that contractor, that consultant. So I know there's still room to grow. How do we do that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Even within my own company, we don't get it right all the time. Okay. And it's a constant conversation. It's coaching. It's development of, it's like you get a spec written and it's kind of our attempt at perfection. Yeah. And then a bunch of people show up. It's like, hey, this is a people business. And people make mistakes. People carry grudges. People, it's like,
yeah.
It's not just a formula. This is not just a quick fix algorithm to be written. So maybe if I kind of go down, go from a concept level or kind of industry-wide level down to even more of a project level, just as an illustration or kind of place to discuss it where people could picture it. Because I think one of the things that can happen, it takes the project off track or the relationships off track, is kind of lack of clarity. A lack of clarity around roles and responsibilities. But even backing up a bit from that, I think sometimes the arguments happen at a fairly tactical level. And so we're starting the discussion sometimes at a tactical level. And it's like, no, there's a couple of layers above that we're missing. And when you miss them, you're in quicksand, I think. You're really taking a chance. The chances of you aligning when you start there are very poor. But what I'm talking about is like, okay, let's rise above the tactics, at least to start with. Let's think about, okay, what's our overall strategy to this project? And above that, what's the objective of the project? I mean, not a lengthy specification. I'm talking about what is the 3-sentence, 1-paragraph type objective for the project. If we start there,
yeah,
I believe it's like, no, it's really important that we understand it and we believe in it. Most of the time, what we're here to do is to accomplish the client's bullseye, not just hit the target, but hit the center of the target. And if we're going to do that, we have to have everybody united around that objective. And so, and you got to rise above, you've got to have a calling that's a little bit higher than yourself.
Yeah.
In this case, if we're going to work together to accomplish the client's goals, we need the client involved too. We need the manufacturer involved. Maybe we need the insurance company involved. Maybe we need a subcontractor involved. Maybe we need a safety professional involved. It's like, but don't start it with, are we going to, do liquid flashings or pitch pans?
Right.
Honestly, I got a job right now. It may never get on track ever again. And that's the argument.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Versus liquid flashings. I mean, we are so, it's like, oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
Well,
and this is a multi-million-dollar project.
Yeah. When you and I and Steve Little had our coffee conversations a couple months ago, great coffee conversations, everyone. You should go listen to it. But when we had that, the thing that struck me the most between, the roofing contractor with K-Post and the roofing consultant with Benchmark and you and Steve talking was that at the very top, at the very tippy top of that, pyramid that you're talking about was what is the best solutions for the customer? And you and Steve talked about that was the number one goal was success, performance for the customer. And and you're right. It seems like when you start there and then you go to the goals and you go to, and kind of work your way down to the flashings. That makes so much sense to me. And you could really, when in talking to Steve, we could both really hear it. He wanted to work extremely close with Benchmark for success because that meant success for K-Post.
Yeah. And it's very apparent to me, and maybe I'm, kind of close to, my careers get very short here, but I think it's allowing me to see some things more clearly than I ever have. And earlier in my career, I was kind of just out hustling, and probably had blinders on, but it's like now I'm seeing it, and there's just a real easy to see distinction. And I'm going to say it. You could just apply this to both the contractor and the consultant. It's like those that almost refuse to collaborate, and those that are like, okay, I understand we have to play, they kind of put up with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then those that embrace it.
Right.
Those that embrace it. It's like, and again, I'm not singling out the contractor. I'm saying both of us. And when you go into it with the look, say, hey, I'm not perfect. We know you're not perfect, but we got to figure out how to work together, get this thing accomplished. And I know, because now we have a long track record of doing this, man, we can accomplish great things, difficult projects, and get them done with very few issues. But even when issues come up, every one of them is an opportunity to, engage, and don't point at each other. We're going to point at the issue.
Right.
And then talk about the options to solve. And then, that flywheel tends to work a little better.
And the success for the ultimate end user, for the customer, the building owner. And I will say, I did have a conversation with a consultant who said, if that contractor would just do what I said and just do it, then everything would be fine. And I think that has been a change in this industry that maybe back in the 70s and 80s, before a lot of the professionalism had come up, maybe there were some points in that. But in today's world, with the professionalism of the roofing contractors and the professionalism of the roofing consultants, we're way past those days of just telling each other what to do. It really has to be that collaboration, like you said, because what I've seen, the ones who've embracing it, they're getting more business.
Yeah, and I think they're having a higher quality of life too, by the way.
Yes.
But
not quite so contentious.
Yeah, you took me back in time to one of my associates, I'll admit, his approach at a pre-bid meeting was to say, and I think he'd look over his glasses kind of funny, and he'd say, well, gentlemen, the way it is written is the way it shall be. And it's like, really? It's like, and it's been a while since I wrote a spec, but I can tell you that when I would run a pre-bid meeting, I would say, ladies and gentlemen,
thank you.
This is my spec. It was my attempt at perfection, and I've never got one right yet. So.
See, now all of a sudden everybody's like, okay, well, let's do this together.
Yeah, because we need each other, and I think it's a conversation. It's a healthy conversation. I give a lot of credit, when it comes to the success of Benchmark, to Kent Madison, who was my predecessor and the president of Benchmark. But he was really, really famous for, at a board level, he'd be talking to us all the time about the need to challenge one another and also encourage one another.
Yeah.
And so he was just this really awesome blend of both of those things. He didn't back away from holding me accountable, but he was also, man, he had my back. He was encouraging me. So I like it when we get to a point in the conversation where we can sit down and say, hey, what's working? What's not working?
Right.
And that's just a milestone along the way, and we readjust.
Yeah. With the ultimate goal in mind, success. Everybody wins. Yeah.
And even that original bullseye that we established on the project, I think that's one of the things when I think of the consulting industry and Benchmark even particularly, I think it's a little bit off track or setting the project up on wobbly ground when we think of the specification and the drawings, the addendums, all of these kind of documents. So it's like okay, the contractor can see in the drawings what we want or how we want something done. If they read the specs, they know what we want done, but do they understand why we're doing it?
Yeah.
And do they then, even a deeper layer, if we really want to get vulnerable, is talking about, well, even deeper was, who are we?
Yeah.
Who is the client? Because the client, it could be that the roofing specification grew out of their desire for sustainability. There's a desire for power production or energy efficiency or indoor air quality, or it's like there's an ethic to a well-written specification. It's just not pulled off the shelf as some type of gold-plated roof design. No, it was designed specifically for reasons that don't even show up in the spec.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we expect success, I think we can do a better job of providing some of the, okay, why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
And because of, that's when you plant your flag in that, and you can stay aligned with that becomes true north. People buy into that. But if we keep them in the dark and they just know that, hey, we had liquid flashings and you want to do a pitch pan, that becomes argumentative.
Right. Well, and you're making me think too, how much things have changed in the fact of how involved the manufacturers are. So it's not just the consultant and the roofing contractor, but that building owner could have been talking to a manufacturer who has totally sold them on a certain type of system with solar, without whatever it may be, green roof, whatever. So you're right. There's just like so many different factors. And if you don't bring those in, and the contractor's just coming in saying, oh, well, I'm certified with that manufacturer, I'll do it, but doesn't understand the whys and the hows. I think that's brilliant, Ron. That's so true, because there's so many forces at work today for a building owner to determine the ROI of their roofing systems and what they need to do.
Yeah. And I just don't want to, at this stage in life, I don't want us just to be the police force.
Yeah, no.
It's like, no, we're actually here to do something more than likely that's difficult. And, but it's just all over benchmark. I mean, we talk about it. And you can never let up. And that's if we're going to be strong, we have to do it together. And this is just another example of that.
Yes.
And,
agreed.
So
I want to just point out one of the things that I have, where you and I got to know each other, where I've been just so impressed, is your involvement with both the Roofing Alliance and NRCA, and just really leaning in to the overall roofing with Roofing Alliance, but also into the contracting world with the NRCA. And now the NRCA has been just so great about one voice and bringing so many more people to the table and doing that. So when you look at that, and when I look at your involvement, let's just and we're getting to, we could go for another hour here, but let's just talk a little bit about that, the importance of being involved and being at the table and not just sitting in your own little bubble.
Yeah. It's a regret of mine that I didn't do it 20 years sooner. But one of the things I think I'd like to take this opportunity to say, because I don't think I've said it before, but when my first alliance meeting, I sat there for, it was 3 days, and I took half a notebook full of notes. But one of the most striking things to me from that experience was how welcomed I was.
Yes.
I was the only consultant in the room. And I thought, this is maybe an awkward place for me to be, but it wasn't at all.
I know.
So if I could encourage any consultant to plug into that community, I come home every single meeting from an NRCA meeting or an alliance meeting, pretty much feeling that same way. It's like, so open, so interested in helping, so interested in raising the tide. And I see, I see that community actually collaborating at a really high level.
Yeah,
and
me too.
And I don't think they missed a beat, for me to just sit at the table with them. And so I'm very thankful for that. It was very kind of eye-opening and appreciated and grateful for. But I think it's an example that I think there is a greater good to be done here, and we've all got to run great great companies, and we can't lose sight of that. But the time that we invest in that industry involvement, I think you take it benefits you back at your company level probably 10-1. And it opens your eyes, you eliminate blind spots, you get new ideas, you get new relationships. And I'll go to my grave saying that relationships pay.
Yeah.
Relationships pay.
Let me tell you, I know that one.
Yeah.
That is so true. Okay. Speaking of relationships, last question, because I think this one is probably one of the most important for roofing contractors out there who are listening to this podcast. If they are not already connected into meeting the roofing consultants in their local community, in their wherever they're doing business, if they haven't got to know those roofing consultants yet, how do they take that step to get to know them and start building the collaborations? What's your recommendation?
Well, I think relationships pay is a really good kind of segue or bridge into that topic. One of the things I would suggest is that if you don't have like a project out to bid right now, that's the perfect time. Actually, because once a project's on the line, everybody has to, tends to go into their own foxholes. So let's engage one another, not around a project or a client so much, but let's have coffee.
Yeah.
Tell me your story. I'll tell you mine. So it does take a little bit of that outreach. I think I'd encourage, very, very kind of slow approach to it to develop a trust. There's so much that we can do to help each other that it probably doesn't take, more than one cup of coffee to figure out, I can help you with that. I can help you with that. And it's like we have to recognize the space too, that, okay, we have different and distinct roles. And depending on the, kind of business model, it could be that you overlap a bit, or maybe there's no overlap, but get real about that. So I think it takes some, honesty and vulnerability, transparency, willingness to help. It likewise takes a little time.
Mm-hmm.
And who isn't busy?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty convinced that what you shine light on will ultimately grow. And it's just like a little bit of a client relationship. When you target customers, you have to realize and have confidence that it's a caution almost to our marketing and sales team. And I'll tell them, and it strikes them as odd every time I say it, but be careful where you plant your seeds, because that's where your crop's going to grow.
Right.
And
it's
so
pretty obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're planting a seed, with a consultant in your marketplace that, and I think you got to start with, the idea that I have to earn it, relationships. It won't just be given to me. And then I hope that consultant has the same attitude that it'd be a shame to be in the same marketplace and not have a full understanding of what your capabilities are. Okay, should I be, notifying you of, modified projects, or you just metal roofing projects, or you thermoplastic what's your sweet spot? Tell me, where can I help you, or where can I align you with projects that will help you be successful?
Right. Well, I have to tell you, I have seen some great examples. I've seen you and Steve little that was so great to watch that. I am on the Western States Board, and I had the honor of one night being at dinner with a leading roof consultant out of the Sacramento area, and a leading roofing contractor out of the Sacramento area. I got to sit and listen to them talk and talk about projects and do exactly what you're saying. They collaborated. They were like, did you hear about this? Have you heard about this way to do it, or this product? And they met through Western States. So and then I'm going to give one more example. The young lady who I told you was at IBEC, she, amazing young lady out of Colorado who is, running her own commercial roofing business, and she belongs to the local IBEC association, the regional council, and she's involved that way. So I just like what you've done, I encourage everybody out there, whether you're a roofing consultant or a roofing contractor, get involved in your associations on both sides, both on the RCAs and on the IBEC, because that's where I think these conversations begin. Besides right here in this podcast, of course, Ron. Yeah,
for sure. For sure. And the industry is vast. Sometimes it seems pretty small, but it is vast.
Yeah.
And you could never, know everyone or know every product, yourself. And I think the part of, I'm fairly certain the most successful people in this industry have a humility about them where they recognize, I don't know it all. And I never will.
Right.
But it's like when you can exchange and get in a jam session like what you're describing, Heidi, that's like paid tuition. You just, I don't care what that lunch cost you.
I know.
Man,
I learned so much that night.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, Ron, thank you. Thank you. This has been delightful. I love it. We're going to have to do it again. I know you have that retirement word out there, but we'll do this again before you. You're never leaving anyway. You never leave roofing. You can't do it.
I've heard that's true. We'll see. I'll probably flunk retirement, but I am going to give it a try.
Okay. Maybe a couple days of fishing anyway.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today. I can't tell you, this has just been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. You do a great job, by the way.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. This is the stuff that not only helps your business, but you have to say it warms your heart. Please get involved with your local IBEC, your local RCA, invite consultants to come to your RCA meetings. This is how we can bring this all together and deliver the best results for the end users, our customers that need that roofing protection. So also be sure to check out all of our podcasts on Roofers Coffee Shop under the RLW navigation under Roofing Road Trips, or on your favorite podcast channel. Be sure to subscribe and set those notifications so you don't miss a single episode. We'll be seeing you next time on Roofing Road Trips.
If you've enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us on every roofing adventure. Make sure to visit rooferscoffeeshop.com to learn more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next Roofing Road Trip.